All right, well, thank you so much for joining us, and thank you to our crew here that is working on behalf of the City of Kenosha Commission on the Arts and the KenoshaRising project. I wanted to first introduce myself as the chair of the City of Kenosha Commission on the Arts and introduce you to the Kenosha Creative Economy Strategic Plan. We're very proud to have partnered the city and the county of Kenosha with the University of Wisconsin Bolz Center for Arts Administration, and they will oversee the process of 2 semesters to lay out a roadmap for initiatives that will advance the creative economy here in our community of Kenosha. So as part of this strategic planning process, we have a small team of researchers that are interested in hearing from community voices. We have our own project that will be featuring community creative leaders that will be sharing their perspectives, their hopes for the future, and all the information and responses gathered through these interviews will be used for research and promotional purposes. So it's my pleasure to introduce our qualitative data collaborative, our qualitative research collaborator, Kristin Krowe, and she will lead off our interviews.
All right. So hi, I'm Kristin Krowe. I'm a senior communication major at the University of Wisconsin Parkside. I'm joining Amy on this team because I'm interested in qualitative data and research for future potential career options. And of course, I'm an advocate for the creative economy.
I'm Marilyn Propp and recently moved here from Chicago. David and I are co-founders of Anchor Graphics in Chicago, a not-for-profit print shop and gallery that ran for 25 years. And we are planning to become part of the Kenosha creative space.
And I'm David Jones, co-founder of Anchor Graphics and co-founder also of the Center for Collaborative Research, which will be a part of the Kenosha creative space here in Kenosha, Wisconsin. And we're really pleased to be here.
Well, thank you for being here. Okay, so we'll start off with some questions then. Could you guys tell me about your business and what your roles each are in the business?
Sure. Well, as a co-founder, my chief responsibility was to develop, and what I guess I'll talk about is the initial Anchor Graphics, because really that's the model we're kind of using here. We basically established a not-for-profit, professional, fine art print shop. So it's not printmaking as we're used to thinking of Quick Prints or FedEx or Kinko's or that stuff. But it's fine art printmaking, but the main difference in our organization was that we revolved around education, feeling that education is really the key to future success in the arts. So we brought students into the facility and had them working with staff, with professional artists, with our artists in residence, and learning kind of all kinds of skills, personal skills, but also, creative skills.
With David, I would help develop programs and write grants. We found we would team teach, and we found that students who came in initially would learn problem solving, creative thinking, learn to work in teams. So we developed this whole professional shop where we'd bring in professional artists and we'd bring in students, we'd have interns, and many of our interns from Anchor Graphics are now chairs of departments or entrepreneurial. They've started their own print shops. And this is all hand printing with on lithographic limestone with hand cranked presses. So skill sets became very important. And this is what we hope to do here in Kenosha with the Center for Collaborative Research.
Excellent. And why do you two consider yourselves creatives in this community?
Well, I think that, I think for myself, it's something that I've been involved with since I was very young. My parents were both creative individuals, and my professions my various jobs have led me into the arts, the fine arts, either being a gallery director, master printer at another print shop, And so it's very much a part of who I am, and it's linked and intertwined into my being. And so it's kind of spills out into everything.
I've been a practicing artist, a studio artist for over 40 years, and an educator for over 35 years. So I'm a studio artist, but also teaching is very important. I balance my teaching and my studio time so that I do both. They feed each other. And then, of course, our experience with running Anchor Graphics for 25 years is very important as well.
So what, in your view, would be the key components to a creative economy?
Well, we were talking about this last night, and I think that what's really, really critical is one, there has to be a space. There has to be a place where these kinds of activities can take. Where do you go to explore or experiment? Because I think our culture has so much that revolves around profit, that making art isn't a profit-oriented endeavor. And I think that creating that space, the creative space, if you will, provides that kind of environment where things can happen. When Marilyn and I started Anchor Graphics, one of our key things was we wanted to create a space where those kinds of activities could happen. And we really want to reprise that here. And I think that our experience can kind of help shape and mold that. But I think that space is really, really important.
We've also talked about how, and practice this at Anchor Graphics, you have to have a diverse income stream. Grant writing, donations, classes, selling work, contract work, and other means. They change all the time, so you may think, oh, classes, this is it, but then the next year those go by the wayside and you have to find another way to make money. So it's got to be a diverse income stream. That's very important. And again, as David said, creating a space where you can celebrate risk-taking, where the product is not the main goal, it's the process of being involved. It's developing skill sets and creative thinking for the people who come in. And I think art making produces people who can problem solve and who can go out into the world and get jobs as creative thinkers in any field.
All right. So how have you and your organization adapted to the creative economy?
Well, I think that as Marilyn was saying, is that kind of diverse income stream becomes really important. I mean, she mentioned the idea of classes. Well, sometimes classes don't go; they don't fill. So how do you generate revenue? I think, and also partnering. We would partner with other organizations for fees. So let's say we wanted to do a workshop with the Boys and Girls Clubs or something. We would basically say, okay, let's create a workshop. Free workshop for these kids. The organization would pay a fee. So then that becomes this very creative kind of process to, okay, how do we generate revenues? And I think the Fusion does that here by having various types of activities where people are saying, okay, we want to use this facility for an opening, or we want to use it for a poetry reading, or we want to use it for a performance. All of those things begin to be really, really critical, I think, in terms of, one, you're reaching different audiences. So let's say we have a workshop with kids, then we have a workshop for adults, we have a professional development workshop for artists or other creatives. And then you start this kind of development of community, this development of a dialogue and a dialogue between people, and then it grows. And I think that's really, really critical.
Also, I think it's important to bring the community in by bringing people outside of the community to the space. We, for 25 years, brought in artists in residence from all over the world, and they would come in and work for 3 weeks on a specific project, and they would give a lecture to the public that was free and open to the public. We would split the edition of whatever they had made, and then they would keep their part, and we would sell whatever we shared with them. So it was creating income, but it was also bringing people in to see people they maybe had never seen before, to learn about what's going on with artists throughout the United States, in Canada, Australia, China, wherever we brought people in from. And so it becomes this very interesting merging of the community here and the larger community.
What do you see as successful strategies to be implemented in Kenosha for the creative economy?
Well, I think the real obvious one for me is the Kenosha Creative Space. This is really probably one of the major reasons why Marilyn and I moved to Kenosha was this opportunity to be a part of something that really has, I think, the possibility to really impact the culture of Kenosha by having this space where it's not just a print shop. It's more, that's just one small component of a much larger kind of vision. I think that space where partnerships and relationships, being collaborative relationships or business partnerships, can have this kind of opportunity, this environment where they can germinate and prosper. That just seems to be, I think, a really, really smart idea. The thing that I see, though, is that marketing is going to be really critical, because one of the things that we discovered in running our organization is that people have very short memories. And so if something is not marketed, people just, or there's, it's the same thing over and over again, then there's, people just kind of go, yeah, whatever, they're just doing that again tonight. So really having to kind of keep this edge within, the staff, but also in terms of the activities that are taking place in that environment.
I would agree. I think we moved from Chicago specifically to become part of the Kenosha Creative Space because we see so many possibilities there, so many opportunities. David mentioned collaboration. Whether you bring in young students or you bring in professionals or you bring in adults from the community, the collaborative process becomes really very important. And so there has to be a space where that takes place, and I think that's the Kenosha Creative Space can become that locus, that center. And as David said, we're not going to be just a print shop. Collaborative research means just that people can explore, celebrate risk-taking. I'd like to give paper-making workshops. We'd like to use digital resources. Hand printmaking can also be done digitally. So you have to have a place for all of this, and that would be the Kenosha Creative Space.
All right. So what kind of personal expectations do you guys have for involvement with the creative economy?
Well, I think we're as kind of recent transplants. I think we're both kind of figuring out how do we make a living? How do we make an impact here? And it's a bit of a challenge because we don't have we're new here, so it's having to kind of seek out new possibilities and develop new relationships. But I think we're already, just by being involved in the community, those kinds of relationships are being developed, and I think we'll see what happens. I think in terms of the creative economy, I think it's always when someone changes, it's how do we make it work, and that's a challenge, because there's nothing written. There's nothing written for Marilyn and I about how to be successful in what it is that we do because of our unique experiences and our skill sets, and so we have to basically kind of negotiate this new environment, which I think is a bit challenging and can be a bit daunting, but I think this is true with anyone in the creative economy. I think it's how do you sell yourself? How do you market your skills? And then finding those kinds of individuals or those organizations that say, oh, you're exactly what we're looking for. Your skill set is what we're looking for. One of the things that we've done in the past is create internships. And one of the things that in my own personal experience, internships have been pivotal and my learning and my ability to kind of move forward in my career. And those have been key elements, I think, in our organization, in that when a student comes in and they are working side by side with an artist or a master printer or a technician or even a manager, they're picking up skills that are more intimate and more specialized than one would get in a textbook. And those, and I, from my own experience, but I think some of our interns have gone on to really have those experiences really grow, and they have become, I think, much fuller human beings because of those experiences. Not necessarily of me or of Marilyn, but that opportunity to learn and that opportunity to kind of push and kind of see how things fit and try things. And providing that environment is so critical and so crucial.
David and I are both educators, and we had a graduate student at Columbia College where I still teach, and she was meeting with the Board of Trustees, and they said, "What are you going to do with your degree after you graduate?" And she said, "I can do anything. I can do anything," because the programs there celebrate risk-taking, creative thinking, is all about taking risks, exploring, being challenged, and then meeting those challenges. So I think it's important within a creative economy that the idea that students come in and they're exposed to these ideas that they don't maybe get in school or in jobs. And we know someone who runs a professional graphics lab, and he said they can't find young students who are willing to learn new skills, be challenged, and grow. We at Anchor Graphics had interns that went on to become chairs of departments, to become entrepreneurial and start their own not-for-profit print shops. Anchor Graphics really, there are shops all over the country that based what they do on what we did. And so to start this up again here, we're hoping that this will help Kenosha to, or that we can be a small part of the growth that we see Kenosha facing. I think we're right on the cusp here in Kenosha of this whole arts community just blossoming. So we're just hoping to be a part of all that.
Well, I think there's this, and I think also that Kenosha is in this. I mean, one of the things that we really like about Kenosha is we're at the end of the metro line. We're close to Milwaukee. We're close to Chicago. Our artists in residence, we've already talked to people who are really excited to come here and work and be able to have this environment to work in. So creating this, again, this environment, this, if you will, a safe container. So I think that becomes really critical. That we have this container that where people can come and do things and take these kind of creative risks and kind of go, oh, well, if it fails, it's okay. It's not based on, well, we just lost $1 million because you failed. Because in that kind of environment, you don't have that, I think, that luxury. Whereas we want to provide that environment where people can try things out and see how it fits and, bump around a bit. And out of that comes this new kind of growth and understanding, which I think is really, really valuable. And I think that this location just seems really perfect for that right now.
I'd like to add to that. We talked to a friend of ours who also runs a community print shop in Chicago, and she said, "Oh, you're right on the trail. There's people will go up to Sheboygan, and then they'll come down. Actually, Twin Rivers has a letterpress museum, and then they'll come down to the Kohler, and then they'll come down to Milwaukee, and then they'll come to Kenosha, and then they'll go down to Chicago, and we're right on the trail. So there's this network of creative people who I think will be drawn to Kenosha, and it's an hour away from Chicago, 45 minutes from Milwaukee, and it's right on the lake. It's perfect."
I think so too. All right, well, thank you for answering all of our questions and participating in this.
Pleasure.
I'm excited for you guys to be a part of the creative economy.
We are too.
Thank you. We are too.
Thanks.
Right.